please just pop them in the chat. We're very happy for you to ask questions either via the chat function or if you'd like to wait until the end when we have our Q&A segment. And just to confirm as well, that slides and links will be shared with everyone after the workshop. So that leads me on to introduce today's Think Twice workshop. My name is Balma Fitzgerald and I am the Get Ahead officer here at Ahead. The topic of our session today is looking at assistive technologies, or AT, in the workplace. We'll draw on some real life examples and you'll get some insights into how best to discuss AT with your employer and how they can be implemented for you. And we will also touch on Ahead's AT Hive. So I just want to give a quick intro then to our speaker today before I hand over to her. So Danielle O'Rourke has worked a variety of roles, including learning technologist, instructional designer, digital tutor, and is now digital media and e-learning officer here at Ahead. Her experience includes the development, design, and production of learning items, including e-learning, with a focus on digital accessibility, universal design, and disability rights. So thank you so much for joining us today, Danielle. I will hand over to you.
Great, thanks so much. Thanks everyone for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen there now. And you might just, Bamba, you might just give me a nod once you can see it, just to let me know.
Yeah, that's coming up perfectly.
Perfect. Okay. So thanks so much again, everyone. I really appreciate you all coming along to this session today, and hopefully it can be of some use for you. So as Bamba mentioned, I'm going to be talking about assistive technology, or AT. So this is a little bit of a session overview. It's going to be roughly an hour, and we're going to start with doing a little bit about what is assistive technology, what I mean by assistive technology. We're going to go a little bit through maybe the Ahead, what's called the AT Hive. And for those of you who don't know, that is a section on the Ahead website whereby you can go and have a look through different forms of assistive technology that could help you out with various different tasks in your day-to-day life or in your work or your education. Then we're going to go over and go through a few common concerns that we have found with assistive technology in the workplace. So this might be, you know, if you've started in a job and you need to use a bit of assistive technology, or maybe there's a bit of concern coming maybe from yourself or from the employer side about assistive technology in the workplace. Hopefully we can kind of assuage some of those fears. And kind of address that. We'll talk a little bit about kind of these issues, kind of the facts around them, and then we'll actually pull from some case studies that we've actually experienced ourselves. And then at the end, then we'll pause for questions. If you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we can get to those there. So with that being said, we're going to get started. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is what is assistive technology. And now assistive technology, or AT, you'll see it used in a variety of different ways. So it is typically described as an umbrella term for assistive products which help maintain or improve an individual's functioning related cognition, communication, hearing, mobility, self-care, or vision. So that's a really, really long way of saying basically that the AT is handy. It is something that will work and is a piece of software or a product that helps people. And you might think, you know, on the screen here, I've put some pictures. So I've put, excuse me, I've put a picture of a pair of glasses. I've put a picture of a walking stick or a cane. And then I've put a picture of this thing that kind of looks like DJ decks almost on the right-hand side. It's essentially a different form of input machine. So that is a way, it's an alternative to a keyboard or a mouse, for example, to operate a computer. So you might be wondering, why on earth has she put up glasses and a cane on this? So the difference and what a lot of people think of when they think of technology, they immediately go to the high-end stuff. They immediately go to, you know, these very specialized technologies, these very specialized pieces of software or machinery, but really the term assistive technology can be used to describe things that range from, for example, these glasses. It is a product that helps to improve my functioning and my vision. So the word assistive technology can be kind of confusing, and it maybe could also be called maybe assistive aids or technological aids or even just mobility aids. A lot of this kind of section has a lot of crossover and a lot of different words that are used for different aspects of it and by different people. So I just want to confirm that that's kind of what we're talking about today. So these kind of things, these bits of AT can range from very, very low tech, as I mentioned, like glasses and canes, up to the very, very high tech, which include a lot of kind of specialized software. And some of you might be using some assistive technology today. For example, one of the ones that I use quite a lot is the accessibility kind of features on my phone. So I would use the read aloud function a lot. I've got an Android phone. Sorry to iPhone users, but I have an Android phone and I use the speak aloud feature to read what's on the screen. As it's, you know, it can be kind of difficult to see the screen sometimes for myself. I know that I've used obviously a voice assistant before, so I'll whisper the Alexa, that Amazon voice assistant. I know I use that quite a lot as well for things that can help. So things like that are examples of some assistive technology that you might use day to day. So for those of you who maybe aren't too sure about assistive technology, aren't too sure what's out there. I mean, there can be so much out there that can be really overwhelming. Ahead have developed this thing called the AT Hive. So this is the AT Hive. I've just got a screenshot on this page now, and I believe one of my colleagues has put the link in the chat. If you do want to go have a look at that, please feel free. And essentially what it is that it is a repository of different forms of assistive technology, leaning more towards the high tech, mid tech end. So what this means is that you can go and have a look. We have, I think it's 12 categories for things like reading, writing, organization, time management, you know, mindset tools, things like that. And you can go and have a look and browse those tools. It's also what I think is quite good about it is that it is a crowdsourced resource. And what I mean by that is that people can submit write-ups for the AT Hive. So if you are using a piece of assistive technology that you think would be useful for other people or that you just want to share, there is actually an option to submit an AT write-up, and it's just a Word document and you just tell us a little bit about the tool. And it's great because it means then that we're kind of keeping abreast of all the kind of the most up-to-date things out there. You know, the speed at which technology moves these days is very, very fast. So having that crowdsourced resource there is very helpful for us in trying to keep up with it and have you know, a good eye on any new pieces of technology that are coming out. So what you can do is you can go and browse there and it will give you some options. There is also an option for the discover your assistive technology bit, which is quite fun. And I'm going to just stop screen sharing my presentation now and just walk you through that discover your AT option. So if you're not sure where to start, that's totally fine. What we have, and I'm just double checking that my screen is sharing there on the AT Hive page. Perfect. I see some nods. Great. Thank you. So I'm just sharing my screen here on the AT Hive page. If you do open it up on your own device, you'll be able to see pretty similar to what I'm looking at. And there is an option for browsing through the 12 categories, or you can do this discover your AT. So discover your assistive technology. And this is the one where if you're really not sure where to start, not sure where AT might help you, this is where you can go. So it's going to ask you a few questions. If I scroll down a little bit, there's a little video here in case you want to have a little bit more information about this tool. But I'm going to scroll, and just below that video, there's a button that says Find Assistive Technology. So I'm just going to click on that there now. And it's going to ask me 3 questions, okay? Only 3 questions, it's not too long. And you can swap and change this out and do this as many times as you like. So the first question is, what interests would you like to explore today? So say, for example, I am going into the workplace and I would like a way to help me write reports, maybe. So I'm looking at the writing category. And I would also like some tips and tools for being organized. So I'm going to select as many of these kind of categories or topics that I would like to look at, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and I'm going to click next question. And then what it's going to ask is it's going to ask, what device do I use? So if you're not sure, you could either click, not specified, just show me them all, or you can use this handy button here that's going to detect what current device you're on. So if you're not sure whether your computer is, a Chromebook or whether it's just a laptop or whatever that may be, you can use detect my current device and it will detect your device. Or for example, if you know that you have a work phone and it is an iPhone, you can use that and say you have an iPhone, but you have a Windows computer. And you can tick those two, and it will then show you tools that are compatible with those tools. So I'm going to click iPhone and Windows computer, and then I'm going to just scroll to the bottom and click next question. And then the last question is finally, which of these do you use? So the options here are a Microsoft account, so Office 365, a Google account, or no specific account needed. So if you're going into a workplace, some workplaces might use a specific set of tools. So I know in my own workplace in Ahead, we use the Microsoft suite of tools. So we use the Office 365. Whereas maybe when I was in a different organization, we might have used, Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Sheets, and that kind of suite of tools. So if I wanted to specify one, I can pick one here. So if I just pick Microsoft account here, say for example, and I'm going to click show my results. And what this will do is going to take in the information that I have put in for these 3 questions, and it will show me tools that match that. So it says here the AT matches from your search, and it just recaps my answers to the questions there. And then I have options on where I can email the link to my results, or I can go back to question 1 and start again if I want to do different ones. So that's a really helpful thing. So if I go here, I'm going to scroll down and see there's browser tips here. So this is a bit about browser tips, about how you can use different internet browsers to maybe help organize your life. And there's a bit about captions, this thing called Caption Ed, which is quite helpful. There's the dictating online words, of dictating in Word, and then there's a bit about online calendars. So I can have a look at each one of these. So say if I just click online calendars, it'll bring me to this tool page. There's a lot of information here, but take what is useful to you and leave what isn't. And you can see there is what it's most useful for, the cost of it, whether it's free or whether it requires a subscription, and some useful features of it. There is also then a top tip, and how you can kind of help. And then there's a little bit of a demonstration here as well. So there's usually a crowdsourced YouTube video, maybe from a content creator online, or it could be one that we've created ourselves at Ahead. So it shows a bunch of different demonstrations of different calendars, which is very, very handy. So that is the AT Hive and the Discover Your AT tool. If you did want to just have a look through the categories, that's also available. So if I'm back on this page, I click our 12 AT categories, and you can see that there's all there. So we've got note-taking, reading, writing, recording, etc. So it's one of those tools that is always evolving and always growing, which is great. And as we say, if you do have any assistive technology that you use that isn't there, and you'd like to share it with us, please do. We'd love to have more information about it, and we're always looking for new tools there. There's so much technology out there these days that it's good to kind of get a peer-to-peer recommendation for them. So I'm going to pause for 1 second. So what we're going to do now is we're going to imagine, okay, you're on your employment journey, you're going into the workplace, and you have identified a piece of software or a specific technology that you think is really going to help you. And you're going into the workplace and you've maybe had your needs assessment, or you've kind of had a chat with the employment manager or whoever that may be, a hiring manager, excuse me, and you've mentioned, okay, there's this piece of technology that I think would actually help me. So some of the concerns that people might have some of the common concerns, excuse me, we're going to address. One of the first things I do want to mention, though, that I haven't really talked about here is about disclosure. So disclosure is kind of a touchy word, but it's a basically means telling your employer about your disability. So we do have a really well done recent publication actually on disclosure and how to make a disclosure to an employer. If one of my colleagues there want to kind of link the disclosure guide in the chat there, that would be great. That's kind of a first step, is kind of okay, these kind of issues and these kind of accommodations occur when you've disclosed to an employer that maybe you have a disability or you have anything and you need a piece of assistive technology to help you. So that's kind of where we start. I won't cover that today. That's a whole other subject. But just to let you know that there is kind of an information booklet there on maybe how to approach disclosing with your employer. So we're in this situation, we're imagining now, okay, we've picked up the assistive, or we've chosen the assistive technology that we'd like, that we feel would help us, and we're going into the employment, and we've told our employer about this. So some of the concerns that we've come across, or some of the responses we've come across in over the past, 20 odd years that AHEAD has been around. Gosh, I can't do maths, I don't know, since 1988. Is the above. So I've got 4 different options here that we're going to go through. So one of them is the response where that's not our responsibility, or it's not our responsibility. So basically this is where an employer says, oh, that's your own thing, you've got to deal with that, that's nothing to do with us. And we'll go through these more in detail in a second. The second one then is that, oh, that's too expensive, or it's too expensive, the cost, we can't do the cost. And that may be true or it may not be, and we'll come to that. The third one is, oh, well, we work with sensitive data. So this one comes up particularly in the case study. You'll see about kind of maybe reading and writing software, and people are concerned about data protection, particularly post the GDPR implementation from 2018. And then the last one then we have is, oh, that won't work with our systems. Or maybe it's they're like, oh, we don't know if that works, or maybe that software we can't get it to work, for example. So those are the 4 concerns that we're going to go through. And I'm going to start with the one that probably stood out the most. I think I've just seen a message in the chat about it, about, that's not our responsibility. Now, I doubt that you will see this, really, especially in the more recent years. Employers are more conscious and aware of their legal responsibilities and their, moral responsibilities to employees. So this hopefully is less common than it used to be. But the response to this is that, employers do have a responsibility under some legislation in Ireland, and I'm quoting here, to do all that is reasonable to accommodate the needs of a person who has a disability by providing special treatment or facilities. So that is included, I believe, in the Employment Equality Act, and there is a kind of reference to providing reasonable accommodations in Irish legislation. So a reasonable accommodation could include the use of assistive technology in the workplace. Now, this isn't to say that, whatever piece of technology or whatever that may be, that you have a guaranteed unalienable right to have that. It is kind of basically that the employer has a responsibility to accommodate your needs. And usually that is done through the process of a needs assessment. So maybe it might be found that actually maybe this software isn't handy for you, maybe that actually won't help, or things like that. But that is a discussion that is had with your employer. They do have a responsibility for reasonable accommodations. And you can read more about that online. There's been, kind of a bunch of different case studies or case law about that. One example that I will say is an example of a charity And this is from October 2024. So this was actually news, so fairly recent. So an employer must pay, I've just put in a little screenshot of a news article there, and the headline reads, employer must pay €7,000 to former worker for discrimination on grounds of disability. Now, this case itself did have a couple different elements in it. It wasn't just to do with the assistive technology. However, it did say that the Workplace Relations Commission, the WRC, which is essentially kind of the Labour Court in Ireland, they heard that the employee had asked for a free app called Grammarly to be downloaded on her work computer, but it was not done so for several months, despite promises to do so. And then that had a negative effect on their work performance. So that was the grounds of that kind of case, and you can read more about that. I'm not a lawyer, but that's just one that came up recently. So I think employers are much more aware of their responsibilities under Irish legislation. And maybe that's my wishful thinking. Obviously, I work with the head, and they're a very great organization at doing this kind of thing. So, but that is something that has come across. Employers do have a legal obligation to provide you with reasonable accommodation, whether that be assistive technology or maybe in the form of working hours or the like. But today we're going to focus on assistive technology. So that's the first kind of concern that hopefully will be allayed. You've got a reasonable expectation of reasonable accommodation, and that is enshrined within Irish legislation. The next one then is, oh, that's too expensive. Okay, so as I mentioned at the start, when people think assistive technology, often they immediately think of the very high-tech specialized pieces of software or hardware. And immediately they go, oh my gosh, the cost of that is going to be far too much. There's no way we can do that. Okay. Now, this depends organization to organization, but there is some leeway here. What we've found here in the head, kind of anecdotally, and this is kind of more in the education sphere where we've done research on it, but it does almost translate over to the employment sector, is that a lot of assistive technology could actually be free or built into software that's already being used, especially in a post-lockdown, post-virtual, switch to virtual working world. A lot of assistive technology is already built in. So I mentioned earlier Microsoft Office 365 and the Google suite of products. They actually have a bunch of assistive technology features built into them. And most companies, if not all, I'd wager to say, are paying for one of these software suites anyway. So it actually would not incur any extra cost. So when people immediately think that providing assistive technology comes with an extra cost or a prohibitive cost, that is not necessarily the case in, I'd say, at least half, if not more, um, cases. Now, if there is a cost to it, that's another thing, but they also, there is options for employers. So there's such thing as, I believe it's changed its name recently, but the Reasonable Accommodation Fund. I'm not sure, they keep changing the names on these things so that I forget them. But there is help there and grants available to employers if there is an undue burden of cost. However, the vast majority of assistive technology would not have a disproportionate burden in terms of cost for employers. One example I want to give here is an example that we came across in the WAM program. So for those of you maybe who don't know, although I imagine if you're here, you probably do, the WAM program that AHEAD runs, the Willing Able Mentor program, that is an employment program that we run here. And as part of that, We do sort of needs assessments for work placements and jobs and that kind of thing. So these examples are actually taken from our own experience, now completely anonymized, of course, but they're actually taken from our own recent graduates or past graduates. So one example of this was there was someone in the civil service and they had a visual impairment. And through their needs assessment, they were told that they can, or it was just determined that they need some sort of a screen magnifier. What happened was is that they were provided with a Windows laptop for their work, as most places kind of do, and both magnifier and a speech to text feature are actually inbuilt features of Microsoft and Windows 10. So in this issue, or in this instance, there was no issue in implementing the required assistive technology. There was no extra cost involved. Everything was already built in. So in the initial needs assessment, the graduate was provided information about an alternative software which could suit their needs if the inbuilt features were not suitable. So there was an option to buy this proprietary software, I believe, where it is a magnifier or a zoom or whatever. But then it was actually found, well, the inbuilt tools work just fine. And that assistive technology was sufficient. So we did a few check-ins with them to make sure it was all good. And they just didn't incur any further cost. So although there might have been some kind of hesitation at first, or maybe people might have immediately went to look for the proprietary paid tools, it turned out that there was free or inbuilt tools already available. So AT does not equal expensive always, which is good to know. The next one then is the option or the response of, oh, that won't work with our systems. So we see this a lot in maybe manufacturing roles or roles that maybe have a lot of different software that they use, or they have a specific proprietary system that they use for maybe inventory management or the likes. And that's kind of where this might come up. The response to this is, well, if the technology is not built into something already being used. So for example, you might need, if I go back to that magnifier example, you might need a Zoom text and maybe there's a proprietary kind of inventory management software that they use. Well, if it's on a Windows laptop, then the Windows software would work with that. So it's not necessarily a case that just because you have specific company-led systems, that doesn't automatically mean that outside or external software or systems won't be compatible. Now, if you go through the needs assessment process and it is found that this piece of assistive technology is something that you need, then your employer's IT department will come in then and have some input. So they can liaise actually directly with the AT company. So say, for example, if it is, Grammarly or something like that, and they're not sure how that's going to work with their systems, they can actually contact the AT company themselves and work out any issues there. If there is, really no way that this particular assistive technology would work with whatever the systems are, they can then investigate an alternative that would work for your situation. So it doesn't mean that they just go, oh, well, can't do it. It's that, there is an alternative and they do investigate that for you. If you do have any input and suggestions there, that's great as well. And obviously this depends company to company, but generally the IT department will have a good kind of idea of what they can and can't do, and they can work with the hiring managers and the HR people there to kind of sort that out for you. So just because a piece of software isn't necessarily there, then you can have a look and they can investigate a solution for you. One example I want to pull from here is, for example, of an energy company. And this was needed where someone had dyslexia and they needed support with reading, writing, and grammar. So what happened here was when they started, it was really unclear if the company's internal security systems would actually allow this piece of AT to be installed on their computers. So the AT in question was a software called Grammarly, which helps with spelling and grammar. And they actually weren't sure that they would be able to install it on the employee's computer. So the access officer for that company, which they were grateful to have, they checked in with the IT department and the HR department, and they liaised and they had a little look there, and they investigated it and confirmed that actually they can install that. So while that was going on, while that process was ongoing, and they were figuring out if this was achievable, the WAM team spoke to the graduate about alternative methods of support for spelling and grammar. So about built-in features on, Microsoft Word, which has, an editor and a spell check, and other things like that. But as it ended up, then the company came back and said, okay, actually, we've had a look and that's fine. We can actually download that. So there was a couple of different options here. If it really was that it couldn't work, then they investigated that alternative of some inbuilt features. And the company really did a lot of work here to kind of figure out, what could work and how they could make this work for the graduate, which was great. The employer or employee, excuse me. In the last one, then I'm going to talk about, and this particularly came up a lot post 2018 GDPR Act being passed, as I mentioned. So that's kind of the Data Protection Act. It's probably one of the most misunderstood pieces of legislation, but it's one of those things that's very tricky, and people are a little bit wary about it naturally. So there are a lot of concerns, particularly with, say, a screen reader, for example. So if you've gone through the process of a needs assessment, you've got this assistive technology that you need to work with, and your company maybe it's in the medical field, or maybe it's in the pharmaceutical field where there's kind of trade secrets and stuff that you would maybe not want public. There may be some concerns there about data protection. Using a piece of assistive technology does not necessarily mean that the data you work with is at a higher risk. That is just not a given. Many assistive technology companies will have a statement on their website or available in their contracts, maybe, with more information about how their software or hardware works and how it treats your data. Especially if the company is a European-based company, they also have to comply with the GDPR. So it isn't necessarily going to be an issue. Even a lot of companies that maybe aren't based in Europe, maybe they're based in the Americas or elsewhere, if they do business in Europe, a lot of the times they are very aware of this data protection, and they have to kind of work within the realm of that law and that legislation. So this is something that your employer can work out as well. This isn't necessarily something that you need to be researching. But if there is a specific piece of technology that would help you and there is some concerns about sensitive data, then your employer can work that out. Maybe that is they have their legal department liaise with the AT company. Maybe they kind of work within and have it work within certain bounds or have some restrictions put onto it. Or maybe it actually ends up that actually this isn't suitable and we investigate an alternative. So you'll see here that with these solutions, there are always other pathways to take. It isn't just a way where if there is an issue, that means, okay, that's it. You don't get to use assistive technology. You don't get access to the technology that you need. It's that they will work out an alternative solution, and that is your right. So one of the examples we have here was actually an insurance company. And it was someone who had a visual impairment and required screen reading software. So anyone who uses screen reader here, essentially what it is it does what it says on the tin. It, helps, it reads out the screen, and it helps people maybe who use say a keyboard to navigate instead of a mouse, for example, or things like that. So that particular assistive technology was called JAWS. If anyone's heard of it, it is a very specialized piece of equipment, but it's one of the best, I think, that's used out there. Um, this person was working in insurance and insurance underwriting specifically. So they had a visual impairment, and through their own experience and the needs assessment process, it was shown that there was actually no other assistive technology that would enable them to work independently and to the best of their ability. For things like JAWS, they're quite specialized. So typically, if someone's using JAWS or a specific screen reader, they know for sure that that's what works for them. So it was unclear how the company's internal systems would interact with JAWS. The employer had never had to provide screen reading software before, so there was a lot of concerns. And in their company, they deal with a lot of sensitive personal data. It's insurance underwriting, you know, it can be a quite sensitive data sometimes. And they had security concerns regarding an assistive technology, quote unquote, reading this sensitive information. So what happened there was that some education was required actually for the employer from the WAM team actually, because they just had a kind of a misunderstanding of what a screen reader does. So what we did at WAM was they identified the Irish supplier of that technology and then put them in contact with the IT department where they could liaise directly with them to ensure that, you know, they had all of their concerns smoothed out. Then what happened was is that this software JAWS was actually put through its tests. So it was installed, or the company itself, the IT department, ran it through a bunch of tests to ensure that it would actually work on the day of the employee starting, so on day one. They had a specific contact in IT who kind of was trained up on how to use this software. So they could kind of troubleshoot issues for the graduate in the first few weeks of the role. And they had regular support and advice from WAM, from our team, throughout that as well. So that was one that required a little bit more work, but it was absolutely feasible, and it was something that the graduate required. So that is something that was put in place for them. That's kind of the four issues that I wanted to cover. I'll take a little break here now, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some helpful links that might be useful. So I think you were sent these slides beforehand, and I think they'll be sent out as well. But while I mention WAM, there is some WAM opportunities available coming up soon. So what these are is, employment opportunities and job offers, or job opportunities, excuse me. And these ones are a range of roles with the local authorities. So they go live on the 29th of January. Today is the 22nd. So that's next week. So keep an eye on our website for that. We also have an event coming up called the Power of Disability. If one of my colleagues might be able to put the links in the chat there, just in case anyone would like it. The Power of Disability is an event, by disabled students for disabled students. So if you are a student still, which some of you may be, some of you may not, it's all about kind of creating a community of disabled students, and there's some really interesting kind of talks there. I'm going to be doing another one on assistive technology there and different types of assistive technology. So that might be useful. It is free. You just need to register, and it's all online. And then I think I mentioned the disclosure guide already. So this is a booklet that we have that kind of details an approach to disclosure for employment. And it kind of goes through a couple of steps that might help you if you do choose to disclose to your employer. It's very helpful. It was recently updated. I think we've got the link there previously, but very, very useful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here for the moment. I'm a little bit early, and I'm going to start taking questions. So let me just open up the chat box and see.